Well, the conservative bloggers this morning are saying that the Democrats' big hate crimes bill has taken a stunning turn. House Republicans reportedly tried to strip language from the bill. Well, it's not reportedly. They did. They tried to strip language from the bill that would have blocked pedophiles from getting special protections. In other words, the Republicans said, let's make sure that when we define hate crimes, we don't get pedophiles in there as well so that they get special protections. All of the Democrats voted against it. They blocked that effort. On the same day, the same committee slapped down special protections for American veterans. So the Democrats on this committee voted, essentially the charge is, to protect pedophiles, but not veterans. Is that true? The author of the amendment, the man who tried to block the protection for pedophiles, joins us now. His name is Republican Congressman Steve King of Iowa. Congressman, good morning to you.
Good morning, Megan.
All right, so let's just make sure we understand what happened. They're passing a hate crimes bill to provide special protections to certain groups, including gays and lesbians and racial minorities and so on. You thought it would be a good idea to make sure, since they're adding sexual orientation to that bill, to make sure that pedophilia doesn't get swept up into special protection, that people who commit sex crimes against children don't get special protection as hate crime victims if somebody does something to them. And every Democrat voted it down?
They did, Megan, and this is within the context of the language that's in the bill to extend this special protected status for sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender. The definition for sexual orientation was defined by one of the principal authors, Tammy Baldwin of Madison, Wisconsin, as being either heterosexual or homosexual. Well, so within that definition, though, of sexual orientation by the American Psychological Association, you've got a whole list of proclivities. They call them paraphilias, and in that list, among them, are pedophiles. And so I don't want special protected status for a pedophile when a regular person would get lesser protection under this law. They voted it down completely, and without, I don't think, a rational explanation as to why. But if they would have voted to exempt pedophiles from special protection, then they knew they would have been faced with the argument of what about all of the other proclivities that are listed in there. And I think that's the rationale. And by the way, this sets up sacred cows in this legislation, so some people are protected more than others in this society.
Okay, but Tammy Baldwin, who you just mentioned, she came out and said, look, the reason we don't need this amendment to exclude pedophiles is they're already excluded. They're not covered by this legislation. And the reason she said they weren't covered is because she says this bill speaks to sexual orientation, be it heterosexual or homosexual, that is consensual. And pedophilia would not fall within that definition. So she thought you were basically grandstanding, and she also says she doesn't want pedophiles to be protected, but she thinks they're not, and so the amendment was not necessary. How do you respond to that?
Well, Megan, first of all, I don't agree that it's always consensual when it comes to pedophiles. And neither is it always consensual when you look at all of the other proclivities or paraphilias that are in that list. But pedophile may or may not be consensual. But regardless, when you set up pedophiles and protect them, I'd go to the floor debate. Also, Elsie Hastings, the second most senior member on the Rules Committee, read through a list of 30 different paraphilias, and he said, I think all philias whatsoever are protected under this law.
Oh, so he said he does think that they're protected.
Indeed, and they are, and the list of sexual orientation with the American Psychological Association is 547 different proclivities long. So yes, I think this legislation does, and I think Tammy Baldwin's wrong, and actually I think she knows it.
Well, that's incredible. That if you've got senior Democrats on the committee saying outwardly and leaving at least at a minimum a question mark about whether pedophiles, are protected under this act, we got a problem. Because then now are we not at the point where when somebody, no one wants to see violence against any criminal or anybody else, but if somebody attacks a pedophile, if some father who's the father of a child who was molested goes and beats up a pedophile, that father is now going to get arrested on a hate crime charge because of this ambiguity?
Megan, I think you're right. In fact, I would take you back to a fairly notorious case in California a little over 10 years ago, and it was the case of Ellie Nessler, who actually shot the perpetrator who had raped her son in the courtroom. She received a 10-year sentence for manslaughter and served 4 years of that. If the federal government decided that wasn't adequate, they could come in and bring their own federal hate crimes charges against her, and she could be serving life in a federal penitentiary today under this legislation.
All right, I want to
Special protection for pedophiles.
I want to get to two more quick points, but we're coming up against a break, so we got to go through them quickly. Number one, what can people do to shut this down? It has not passed yet in the Senate.
They need to call the Senate. They need to especially call the senators on the Judiciary Committee in the United States Senate. Give them a personal experience so that they know this isn't just an email that they can either delete or automatically respond to. And when that happens, when they understand America is outraged, you can bring about results in the United States Senate. It was proven under immigration. It needs to be proven here under hate crimes.
And number two, I want to get you to weigh in real quickly on the denial, the Democrats' denial to provide special protection for our veterans. Now, the argument is you only provide special protection for groups that have been discriminated against consistently, pervasively for years, and while there have been some unfortunate incidents against veterans, it doesn't rise to that level. Your response to that?
Well, that was the argument of Debbie Wasserman Schultz from Florida. But in the same committee, we have Congressman Louis Gohmert, who has, in the military, been spit upon back in the 70s. And we have a case of in 2004 where there was a wounded Purple Heart veteran in Ohio who was attacked at a concert, a Toby Keith concert, who was wearing a shirt, Operation Iraqi Freedom, for the sake that he was a veteran and he was proud of what he had done. So this does happen, and when you say that pedophiles should be protected, but our veterans coming home do not deserve that same level of protection, I think that tells you where the Democrats are in the United States House of Representatives today, Megan.
Wow. Well, Congressman Steve King, we thank you for coming on. I want to tell our viewers that we invited Debbie Wasserman Schultz and several other Democrats to come on and explain why they did this. We got to know from all of them so far, but we're going to keep trying. Congressman, all the best.
Thank you, Megan.
All right.